Hi, I'm Terrell Turner, the host of the Business Talk Library, and today I have a very special guest. This guest is special to me, and I think just special to marketing, period, is Christina, because her and I used to work together at a tech company, and one of the things that I learned a lot, well, let me be honest, I didn't really learn a lot from her about marketing then. It wasn't until I actually started my own business that I actually realized, like, wow, Christina taught me a lot. So I wanted to bring her on the show. So Christina, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Terrell. It's so good to see you here.
Absolutely. So Christina, now everyone knows that you're in marketing. So tell us a little bit about your background and, what have been some of the roles that you've had.
Yeah, so I kind of have a very untraditional marketing background. I actually started off as an analyst. So I'm more of that, what would you call it, the left brain person, not very creative. I would never be able to create something as beautiful as what's in your background. So I think a lot of people think of marketing as, people that make things pretty, which is probably the furthest away from reality of what a marketer's job is. So I started my career as an analyst. I actually graduated college in the middle of the 2008 recession, which was a lot of fun. But I was lucky enough to find a job with a growing company. It was, at the time, it was Family Dollar, and it was actually benefiting from the recession. So I was so lucky to be able to get an internship there and then to grow my career there and start it off and learn so much during that time frame. I was an economics and statistics major in college. Never took a marketing class ever before, but I kind of wandered through my career and found myself to my job today as VP of Marketing at Ekos.
No, that makes so much more sense. I did not know about the economics background. Like that makes sense why you would ask me so many questions about the budget and the spend. Like I understand it now.
Yeah. Love spreadsheets.
Now, you know what I thought was interesting what you said about, not being a creative. And that's one of the misconceptions that I hear a lot of people talk about when it comes down to marketing. They feel like it's all about, creating something and making it pretty and just being this crazy out of the box thinker. Like, what was it about marketing that interests you since you came from kind of that numbers, more kind of left brain field?
Yeah, marketing is just so much more than, the creative aspect of it. That's definitely an aspect, but it's not everything. What really excited me about marketing is I was able to see that marketing really is strategy. And a lot of times it really helps define the strategy and the future of a company. And usually it all starts with market research, market data, and analytics, which is exactly where I found myself kind of fall into right at the start of my career. So I call myself very lucky to be able to get exposure to that early on, and being able to see how decisions get made for huge companies to grow into the future, how investment decisions get made, and how budgets get created or cut, and really how money is made. So that is really what interested me in marketing early on. I fully acknowledge my, lack of sort of that creative, persona that you might think of a marketer. So what I always do is I make sure to surround myself by people that complement my, lack of skills in certain areas, and I can complement them in other areas, and we make a great team.
Awesome, awesome. So when it came down to, going from Family Dollar to then later on going into SaaS marketing, were there many differences that you saw with the nature of how you did marketing for SaaS versus a Family Dollar?
Yeah, there was tremendous differences. So what I didn't realize early on in my career is that what I'm really addicted to is the fast-paced environment. So Family Dollar was a B2C, consumer sort of business. So marketing was very different there, versus in a B2B world where you might be marketing to, other peers or CMOs or heads of IT. It's just a very different market. But at the end of the day, you're marketing to people. People make up businesses. So the fundamentals are very similar. However, how you allocate your marketing spend and what skills you have to have on your team are very different. So as I said earlier, what I was really addicted to was the high pace of marketing within a growing business. So I kind of wandered around. After Family Dollar, I actually went to a bank, and I learned a lot there. But the biggest lesson I learned is that I hated the slow pace, which unfortunately a lot of banks are kind of dominated by. But I quickly realized I needed to find my niche, and found myself into technology, and it really has been addicting since then. I mean, it's so high pace, it's so innovative, it's very data driven, very numbers driven. So I feel like that's why I thrive in this domain.
Hmm. And I think that's something very interesting, because it's something you and I talked about before, was just the whole idea of, finding your niche and the positioning. And when you think about like being in such a fast-paced environment, like with SaaS, like things are constantly changing. Like, how do people get comfortable finding a niche, but also being flexible enough to change because things are so high paced?
Let's be real. If you start to get comfortable, you're not challenging yourself enough. So that's bad. As soon as you find yourself getting comfortable, get out of it. So that's my role. I mean, I personally constantly look to learn something new. I think I'm only scratching the surface in what I know. I mean, I've been at this for almost 15 years now, and every single day I learn something new. So I like to read new books, listen to podcasts like yours, listen to other folks, hear what mistakes they're making, share my own mistakes, because I feel like there's no better lesson learned than, from mistakes you've made. And then reading about, best practices, what has worked really well. What's the playbook? That's always at the top of my mind, because marketing is fundamentally fairly easy. You just got to follow a playbook, and it all works out in the end. But you got to keep on top of it, and it's ever evolving. So you never got to stop learning. So that's been one thing that has kind of helped me keep going. And I hope that in the future I'll keep going and learning new things and never stop.
And now, speaking of, reading, are there any books that you're currently reading right now?
Yes, there's this book that I'm reading about negotiations. So it's called Never Split the Difference. And something that, in the past year, I've taken a lot of time to read books about marketing and strategy and all that stuff, even being, a good manager. But something that I want to push myself towards is growing my career. And even though marketing is where I thrive right now, I know one day I have an ultimate goal of, being a CEO, running a business. So I've come to realize that I need to expand my skills. So I started to look at, my peers, for example. I always admire the sales team and how much negotiation goes into their day-to-day job, or even, partnerships and the product teams. There's just so many aspects of all these different, facets of a business that I just don't know. So I decided to start reading books on, different facets of a business. And I think negotiation is a big one. So I love the first chapter that I've read so far, and I'm looking forward to diving into it more.
I think that is something that you and I definitely connected well on, was, the different books. And even as you would tell me about different books that you were reading, I will say, I think stepping outside of, your own field of expertise, like for me, it was stepping outside of finance and reading different books. I start realizing that there's so much more to learn. I mean, there's still a lot to learn in my own field, but there's so much more to being, a true business partner, when you start learning about those other aspects and appreciating what role they play in the business as a whole as well.
Absolutely.
So tell us about, what is it like, being in a marketing leadership role that you're in right now? What has that been like?
Well, to me, first of all, it's very exciting. I mean, I love doing what I do. The most exciting part, I think, is the aspect of being able to work with many different people, and just seeing my team thrive. I love it when my team succeeds, when they do something and it's awesome, and it actually drives results. So I love that aspect of it. But at the same time, it's very challenging. Just like you said earlier, it's an ever-evolving environment, especially right now with COVID happening. There's a lot of uncertainty. Are things opening back up? What are our customers doing? And what is the market doing? It honestly has helped me exercise a big muscle over the last 6 months of just being resilient, being adaptive to change. Because really, if you just, master that, then you can face anything. And then whoever comes through adversity is the one that's going to win. So you just got to be that person that tried and tried hard enough and came through.
Awesome. So now that you've had experience kind of at various levels of marketing from individual contributor up to, senior leadership level, what have been some of like the tools or software or resources that you've kind of used to help you be successful at each of those levels?
Yeah. So I think the most transformational tool for me, honestly, was Salesforce. And I know it sounds silly because it's actually a sales tool, but it truly helped me change my career. I think Salesforce is a fantastic company. I love their mission. I love, the way they run the business. And I love how they've succeeded and they've really created an ecosystem around them. But what I love the most and what has been really transformational for me is the resources that they bring to their customers. So I remember early on in my software career, I had the opportunity to go to Dreamforce, which is their annual conference. And it hit me straight across the face how much more there was to learn. So I just started, digesting and learning more about the holistic aspect of a business, which is something Salesforce does really well. So to me, the number one tool that has really helped me transform my career is Salesforce, both from a learning perspective, as well as from the power of the tool itself, that it gives you so much access to data and being able to run your business in real time. After that, I would say, very selfishly within marketing, a tool like Marketo or any marketing automation tool, it kind of helps the marketing team be a lot smarter. It gives you a lot more access to data and it connects straight into Salesforce. So it helps you it opens up your eyes and it helps you be a lot better. And then my ever trusting Excel. I mean, I cannot live without Excel, as you know. So if I had to pick the three tools, those would be it. But I will actually add a fourth one, and it's not a tool, but it is something that, not a lot of people talk about, but it's a great team. I mean, I could never do anything I do on my own, and being able to have a team around me, the right people with the right skills that support the strategy that we set forward, is honestly one of the most important things that I could ever do. So.
Awesome. And I definitely can agree about those tools. I mean, for all of the people watching and people listening, when you hear about Salesforce, if you don't have like a sales or marketing background, I mean, it is a CRM or customer relationship management system, which I will say when the first time I used it, I was just like, wow, there is a ton of value here. And I didn't realize like how much it made even my job in finance and forecasting and modeling so much easier with having a good quality system. So I can definitely second that one. Now, before we wrap up the interview, one of the questions that I like to ask all the guests that come on is, when you think about kind of your journey and your career and your expertise of marketing, what have been, I guess you would say, 2 lessons that you've kind of learned or 2 tips that you would give someone to say, hey, here are some things you should keep in mind to improve, your marketing or your approach to marketing?
Yeah, I'm actually going to give you 3 because I think it's important. They all tie together. I would say number 1 is do not build a marketing team or hire a bunch of marketers that are, just there to make things pretty. That's an important aspect of marketing, and I'm not discounting it at all. You should absolutely have it. But if you have just a marketing team that is not a strategic arm of your business, then you're not leveraging everything that you could out there. So make sure that your marketing team is bringing you insights. They're actually driving sales and they're driving your growth. They can be a very, very important part of your business. Very closely tied to that ties into insights and growing your business, is never stop evolving your product. I cannot tell you how many companies I've seen that get very comfortable. They're like, yeah, we got a really good product and it fits really well. And then bam, something happens. And all of a sudden it's either not relevant or a competitor came about. And what used to be a trendy thing on the side is now the mainstream thing. So now they're all of a sudden irrelevant. I think a major example of that was, a lot of maybe big businesses didn't adopt e-commerce, for example, quickly enough before COVID hit. And then overnight, literally, they had to adopt this whole new way of doing business, and it was almost impossible. And the others that had already adopted it were so further ahead. So just small little things, always evolve your product and your services. And then the third thing is more on a personal level, make sure that you're passing the baton to the next generation. I think, especially in the SaaS world, actually, it can be very cliquey. The further up top you go, the less women you see, the less minorities you see. And it can be very disheartening sometimes. And it really is up to all of us to make sure that doesn't continue to happen in the future. So we all need to figure out ways to impute some diversity at the top of the businesses. I'm very, very hopeful because I feel like I'm watching all the statistics, and Generation Z is one of the most diverse generations ever, and they're going to be in the workforce very soon. So I'm very hopeful for the future, but I think it's one of those things where if you don't pay attention to it, it can get out of hand very quickly, and it can really hurt your business eventually.
Awesome. Well, Christina, thank you so much for coming on the show, for telling us a little bit about your journey and sharing the wisdom and insight from all the things that you've learned from your extensive marketing experience, and all the best as you continue to move forward in your career. Thanks for tuning in to the Business Talk Library. If you like what you heard and you want to hear more, be sure to click the subscribe button and follow us on all social media platforms as the Business Talk Library.